Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach of Lewis and Clark College, Joe Bushman. Before we end Coach Bushman's story, let me tell you a little bit about Lewis and Clark. It's located in Portland, Oregon. They have about 2,194 students. It's $77,000 before aid, $24,000 after aid. They have a 69% acceptance rate and a 74% graduation rate. Their top three majors are psychology, biology, and international relations and affairs. You can find all this information and more at lclark.edu. Make sure that you talk to your parents, your coaches, the people that are recruiting you. Contact Lewis and Clark, get some more information if this is a place for you. Again, that's lclark.edu. But without further ado, this is Coach Bushman. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach of the Lewis and Clark College Pioneers, Coach Joe Bushman. Coach, thank you for joining me.
Carlo, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to get to talk to the Northwest Conference. You're our first team, so we're branching out. We're now coast to coast. But Coach, I'm going to do this the same way I do every week. I'm going to throw you in the time machine, figure out how we got to this point. So let's talk about 1989, Joe.
Sure.
Where does your collegiate journey take you? Because I know where you graduated from, but I feel like there may be a connection to where you are right now.
Yeah, well, in 1989, I was graduating from high school. In fact, I have my 35th high school reunion next weekend on our bye weekend, which I'm excited to go to and see all my boys. But yeah, that was a great year. We ended up winning a state championship at my high school, the Benson Techman, and I think it was only the second time in like 80 years a Portland area inner city team has won a state championship. So those were good days, great days, man. I loved my high school experience playing football, and I think that was something that really fueled me to want to go into coaching. Just because I was so appreciative of, not only life lessons, but just the difference that the guys who coached me in football, basketball, and baseball at my high school, just the great experience I had. I wanted to kind of do that and give that back to other people, So that's for the first time I kind of had that seed planted, that I wanted to somehow, some way stay in coaching.
Right. Now, what led you, I guess my first question is, what led you to Lewis and Clark first before you end up automatically at the place that you graduated from?
Well, I came here. It's a really, really good academic school. And I know I wanted a great education that was really instilled upon me by my parents. And, I wasn't a guy who was like trying to get out of town. I loved Portland at that time. And so it was, there's a new coach, Tom Smythe, who was had won a state championship the year before us at Lake Ridge, and he was the new coach, and he recruited me, and I really liked Coach Smythe, and so I headed up here. I just felt like it was a really good fit for me, both academically and athletically.
Now, what did you tell me before we recorded? About a year and a half? Why was it why did you leave,
well,
I
guess me and Coach Smythe, we had a falling out, to be honest with you. I was the starting quarterback my sophomore year, and about 3 games into the season, I can't remember, things were going along well, and we played PLU, which is a really tough team, still are, but that year they were particularly good, and they beat us, and I ended up losing my job. Well, I didn't just lose my job that day. I ended up, I never took another rep at practice. I mean, I got fired. And it became obvious to me that I didn't have a future playing football at that school. Now, probably a little reactionary. We tend to do dumb things when we're 18, 19, 20 years old. And if I had to do it over again, I probably would have stuck it out because I had so many good friends at the school and I really liked the school. But,
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to keep playing football. My pride, I think, got in the way a little bit. But so I ended up transferring to Willamette, and which was very similar to Lewis and Clark, just in a different location down in Salem. And ended up finishing my college there and had a great experience when I was there. So
Mm-hmm.
I met some more really influential coaches. So, you know, sometimes part of me regrets it, but some of me doesn't.
Now, Coach, before we go any further, does that help you in today's environment with,
It
especially with you guys being out there on the West Coast? There's not as many Division III schools, so the opportunity for a Division III transfer and maybe you understanding a little bit more of their story than a coach from in a different situation, I guess.
yeah, you know what? I think it's, not to throw Coach Smythe under the bus, that it taught me a really valuable lesson in coaching, that you love kids and
Mm-hmm.
and you look out for them as people, and college is a different game, and I know it's cutthroat at times, but at the end of the day, whether if you make replacements at positions, you don't just turn your back on kids. You still
Right.
love and put your arm around them, and we're kind of going through that a little bit with our own program right now. We have a three-way quarterback battle going right now, and tomorrow we're going to start a freshman over a couple of seniors who have been in the program for 4 years, and they're really, really good players, and they're playing well. But this freshman is just playing out of his mind right now.
Right.
Really, really talented. Well, I pulled the two seniors in, and I told them, hey guys, man, we love you, and you guys are great, but we're going with this kid, and here's why, and I guess I learned how to treat people in those situations, how to deal with those situations with some compassion and some love, because I never wanted that to happen to someone else, if
Right.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Now, Coach, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you. How did they handle that conversation as the upperclassmen on the
No,
team?
that's good. I think one is a little more upset than the other, but I'll tell you what they do appreciate is the transparency and the
Mm-hmm.
truthfulness. Something I didn't. I just showed up the next day, and I was third string, and I never took a rep again. We're never gonna do that to those kids, and
Right.
they both have some really good skills, and we'll see how tomorrow goes. But we're gonna find roles for them in some different packages going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, Coach, I see you graduated in 1993, and through my research, the next spot I find you in is Central Catholic in 1998. What was going on in that gap in that gap time?
Yeah, so I actually, when I was at Willamette, I worked for two amazing coaches, Dan Hawkins, and Dan ended up, boy, he's been a lot of places, but he's the head coach at Boise State for a while. Recently at UC Davis, he just retired, and Bob Gregory, who was at Willamette as well, and he ended up being the defensive coordinator at Washington, and he's now on the staff at Stanford as an analyst. But I got partnered up with those two guys, and it was an amazing experience. I got to coach with them at Willamette when I was done playing for a couple of years as a graduate assistant, while I was getting my master's in teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Now, Coach, I gotta stop you there. I gotta ask you a quick question on that. Coaching somewhere where you played, does that is that a harder transition than maybe being a graduate assistant and going somewhere else for the
you
younger
know,
coaches out there?
I think I liked it just because I felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'd only been at Willamette for 2.5 years. It's not like I'd been there for 4 years, so it was still kind of relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I think there's pluses and minuses in both sides. It was my first real experience in coaching, and to be around those two guys and to see how they did things was really beneficial for me. What was interesting is if I would have stayed with them, uh, who knows where I'd be right now? You know,
Right.
I think, you know, I have enough confidence in my ability. I think I'd probably be at a higher level right now, coaching football. Because those guys, I think they really like me, and I'm sure I would have stayed with them. They would have taken me on
Mhm.
their journey. But I kind of I met a great gal, and I was in a hurry to make some money, and so I ended up getting a high school teaching job, and then they
Right.
wanted me to coach, and so I went and I was a high school assistant coach for a couple years. And then I got at a really young age, I think I was 26 years old, I got to be a head coach at one of the better schools in Portland, Central Catholic High School.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then
So
you have a 20-year high school career. I noticed, Central Catholic, Lake Ridge, and I want to make sure I say this right. Clackamas,
Clackamas, pretty good, Carlo.
Clackamas.
Pretty good, man.
With a last name like mine, names are a big deal. So I try to do as best I can to get them right. So through those 20 years of being a high school coach, when we get to 2018, why come back to Lewis and Clark? I guess is where I want to go with this.
Yeah, so I did the high school thing for 20 years, raised my family. Both of my kids went to Clackamas. Loved every minute of it.
Mhm.
I tell people all the time, I've seen both sides, you know, the life of a high school coach, the life of a college coach. I don't think I would have been able to be as an involved dad as I was if I was coaching college football as I was as a high school coach. The
Right.
demands were heavy, but nothing like they are now. So I was able to coach my kids' teams and really be involved in their lives. And my son, him and his friends, boy, we had a great run at Clackamas. He played for me,
Mhm.
and so his senior year or his junior year, we won the state championship, and we've been building that for a lot of years, and we finally pushed it over the top in 2017. And so after he graduated, me and my wife are empty nesters, and I said, Shannon, I know I want to go back to college. I feel like I can do this. And about that time, Jay Losey, who is the head coach here, was nearing the end of his tenure, and we had gotten to know each other through the recruiting process. And he said, "Hey, how about you come up and you be my OC for a couple years, and if everything goes well, I'll retire and you can take over." And shit, man, that's exactly what happened, Carlo. It went according to script. So I'm pretty blessed, you know,
Mhm.
to be able to do that. And it's worked out really well. My wife, she's great. She doesn't want me at home too much. So now I've got that time, right? I've got that time to be up here and put in the hours that I need to do to hopefully be successful collegiately.
Right. Now, coach, there's a couple things I want to unpack there. One, for my viewers that are uh, us here on the East Coast, I'm a Western Pennsylvania guy. I grew up playing Whippeal football. Tell us a little bit about West Coast high school football, and then tell us a little bit more about Lewis and Clark and West Coast college football.
Sure. West Coast high school football is nothing like it is in the South. Even in California, it's not as quite a big a deal as it probably should be.
Mhm.
That being said, it's still Friday Night Lights and all that stuff, but probably on a little bit more of uh, a watered down scale,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Um, Collegiately, I don't know. Lewis and Clark's a unique place. When I got here, you know, we had 62 kids on the football roster, really small.
Right.
Um, Jay had done a great job. They had almost cut football, and he had done a wonderful job of building the thing back up. And it's a liberal arts school. Athletics, when I got here, was not very important, and
Mhm.
it's been pretty amazing in the last 5 years to see what's happened. There's just been a explosion in our numbers. You know, we're up to, I think we have 108 kids out for football this year. A lot more male athletes, diverse male athletes walking around the campus. and there's a really nice buzz now around football, in athletics in general at the school. So
Right.
we're not where we want to be yet, but we're definitely on the road as far as being competitive and also having a fun football atmosphere on Saturdays here.
Now, Coach, I would be I would be remiss if I didn't ask, is this what are they calling it? The enrollment cliff. Is that something that's being talked about a lot, especially as a smaller school where you're saying, we're getting the numbers to where we need to be, but we're not where we want to be. Is that something that you guys are focusing on or talking about, and how does that affect you as a coach?
When you say enrollment cliff, what are you referring to exactly,
So
Carlo?
from what I've read and what I've been told from a couple other people, that in 2025 we're supposed to see this enrollment cliff where people college students, the number of college students that are going to be applicable are not necessarily going to be the same as they have been in the last, say, 5 years or maybe 10 years. We're finally getting to the point where, I came to school in 2010, and I remember I come from a small school at Bethany, West Virginia, where that enrollment number was always talked about. If we don't hit this, it could be a problem. If we don't hit this, it could be a problem. Well, now we're finally, from what I'm gathering, we're finally at that enrollment cliff, so to speak, point where numbers are going to start to die because, price of college is a thing, and people are maybe going to look to trades or other things. So is that something you guys are talking about?
Yes, that's absolutely a concern. It's a concern of our institution and a lot of private liberal schools up and down the West Coast is enrollment. More and more kids are opting not to go to college, like you said. And
Right.
as a school, there is definite pressure on the school and in football in general to produce numbers. And I think that's one of the reasons they like us around here is my first year we brought in 32, and then we had a monster class of 45, and then last year we were at 38. So we've really bolstered numbers of, like I said, of males, and bringing in a high degree of diversity. So
Right.
I know they like what we're doing. For me personally, right around 110 is where I'd like to be. I think
Okay.
it gives the depth to compete, but we have a few schools in our conference that have, 130, 140 man rosters. And I know they do that because football is such a generator of students for the school.
Right.
I'd have a hard time investing the way I do in the kids if we got much bigger. I think our staff does a wonderful job of getting to know each and every one of our player and helping them in football and academics, in social life. I mean, I was telling, man, once you're with us, we're all in on you,
Right.
and when we went from, last year, I think we were at 97. Now we're at 108. I'm feeling a little more stretched to be as relational as I'd like to be. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think we're kind of at that sweet spot right now. So for us, I think targeting, 25 to 30 a year and retaining the majority of them is kind of where we want to be year in and year out.
And then, Coach, that leads right into my next question. What are we looking for when we're looking for a pioneer? What are you looking for when you're looking for a pioneer?
Well, yeah, I like I'm a blue collar kid. I was a blue collar kid, and I like blue collar kids. I like hardworking guys who are really committed to the team cause.
Mm-hmm.
High character kids. You've got to have a great, a really good GPA to get in here. I think the average of our incoming freshman last year was 3.8. So
Wow.
we're after some highly intelligent, academically motivated individuals. And I also just want kids who want to have fun and compete and get after it, So
Right.
and maybe some of those things are cliche-ish, but that's really what we're after.
Well, and you guys finished third last year. Let's not talk about last year because we're into the thick of the 2024 season. Starting off 1-1. a 51-21 win, and then a 34-24 loss. You guys are putting up points. What are we looking at so far in the first two games? And what are we looking for this week going into game 3 against Montana Western?
Yeah, it was a tale of two games. We played really well in the opener in all three phases. Our offense, boy, I think we scored on our first 7 possessions, touchdowns. We were rolling. Really, we have a lot of returning offensive linemen who have been through the wars and are seasoned. And we ran the ball for over 300 yards. We played good defense, especially in the red zone, and had some explosive. Had a punt return for a touchdown. So we felt really good about week 1, and then week 2 we played a team, Pacific, that we had beat for the first time in over 10 years last year. And I'll tell you, they just came out and they outplayed us. I think they played harder, which was disappointing.
Right.
It didn't help that we left the ball on the ground 6 times, and I believe we lost five turnovers. They had some really explosive plays. So we were disappointed in our effort. And the good thing is we get to play them again later in the year. So I'm hoping that will not happen again. We'll be on our game, but we've got a challenge this week. We'll play probably the best team, although I'll tell you, Linfield and Whitworth have been amazing. But we're playing Montana Western, which is an NAIA team. They are one of the best in the country. They number 3 College of Idaho last week by, I think 4 touchdowns. They're really good. They're big. They're physical. We're going to have our hands full. Just being in the game, to be honest, they're really good. But we think we have a great plan, and I know if we play up our capability, we can make a game of it for sure.
Now, Coach, I have to ask. I've asked a couple other coaches, when we get to these first 3 weeks, this is where your non-conference schedule is. Most teams, most conferences, it's either week 1, week 2, and then a handful of week 3s. I notice it's an NAIA school. Do you find it a little hard to schedule when you get to week 3, week 1, week 2, a little bit more open? Week 3, you guys are really looking and how does that work for you guys?
Yeah. Well, what happened with us is we were supposed to play Laverne of Southern California, and they dropped the ball. So we had to scramble to get this game. And there were a couple people we could have played, some teams that we know we could have beat handily, but I felt like our program, we needed to play against another really good team in the non-conference to get us ready for conference.
Right.
And so we picked Montana Western. Now, I didn't know they were going to end up being this good, but I figured, it's great to play someone and really be challenged early. So hopefully the idea being things slow down a little bit when you get to league. And so that's why I scheduled them. I want to play against a really good team to help get us ready for the quality teams we're going to play in our league.
Now, Coach, that leads into my next question. Probably my last question before we talk about the bigger picture Division III stuff. Talk to us a little bit about the Northwest Conference. For a lot of my fan base and the people that watch this show, this is the furthest we've gone. We've covered the Midwest, we've covered the East, we've covered the South. Talk to us a little bit about your guys' conference.
It's a great conference. Every week is a tough game. Really good coaches and quality programs. Like I said, Linfield and Whitworth have kind of had a stranglehold on the league. I think Linfield's maybe won 8 out of the last 10 league titles. Whitworth has snuck up a couple of times, but boy, the other teams in the conference are, George Fox, Pacific Lutheran, Pacific, very formidable, we are one of the 3 high academic schools, so our standards are higher, makes it harder. Our recruiting pool is smaller. Both Willamette and Puget Sound are in the same boat as us, and so we're the 3 that maybe have to scratch and claw a little bit more to get kids. I think we're at a little bit of a disadvantage that way. But that being said, Puget Sound had a great run of football. You go back 5 to 10 years ago, and Jeff Thomas does a great job coaching them. We always have great games against them. And Willamette's been down, but they have a new coach and they have some really good things going as well. So it's people always ask me what's the difference between, coaching college and high school. High school, we had a couple games where we just kind of showed up, and you knew we were going to win.
Right.
College, every week, it's a big deal, man. You take any win you can, man. You throw everything you can. I'll tell you, you got to be up every week to compete in our conference.
Now, Coach, I've asked this question. These next two questions are kind of big for what we've done so far this season. Two big announcements. 2024 season, we expanded the playoffs. We also expanded to a different rule change where possibility of 18 iPads on the sideline. First thing I want to do, was it time for expansion? Are you for expansion? Where do you guys fall with now bringing it out to 40 teams, making the playoffs? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's great. I think the more teams in the postseason, the better. I think like last year, you take our conference, for example, Whitworth won in a really close game against Linfield. Linfield deserved to go to the playoffs.
Right.
If we pull our act together this year and somehow be first or second, I gotta believe that our league is deserving of having two teams. I mean, what an honor that would be. So I think it's great personally. Your second question about the tablets and the video, we had that in high school, so I'm very well versed in that. I enjoy that. I like being able to make in-game adjustments and have coaches and players be able to look at, throughout the game, look at the looks they're getting, and I think it makes for better football.
Right.
So we are not, as a conference, we are not mandating it this year, but next year we will.
Now, are you guys using it even though it's not mandated, or is it a hold off
one of the
until?
schools, we decided there was and we could go into a lot. I mean, what a summer it was trying to figure this out. But unfortunately, our athletic directors decided against mandating it. And so they left it open. And I believe right now there are only a couple of schools in our conference that are utilizing them. And it's our conference agreement starting next week during league that you can only use it if both schools are utilizing the technology.
Okay. Makes sense. Coach, the last question we have before we get into the Fast Five, what is from you, what is the significance of Division III and Division III athletics and let me elaborate a little bit before you answer that. We have a lot of people, it's glorified intramurals, or it's Division I or bust for me. You've been in the Division III realm. What do you say to those people, and what's the significance for you as a Division III coach of Division III football?
Yeah, I think unfortunately a lot of kids have their head in the clouds. That whole D1 or bust, I don't understand that.
Nope.
Any chance you have an opportunity to continue to play the game that you love at a high level, whether it's D1, D2, D3, to me, there's value in it. I think that way too many kids, I think social media has had a lot to do with that too. But I would much rather, me personally, and I think that this is indicative of the players on our team, I'd much rather come to a school like ours, get a quality, a top-notch education, and get to play like on the field, than go to a bigger school and be in big classes and maybe not even have professors that know your name, and to be a scout team player and get to watch. I choose us any day over that. And I know that for some kids, they'd rather just be able to say, that I play at this university and I get this swag and whatnot. But man, ball is ball. You want to play, right? I mean, that's why you play football. So I think the value of Division III is, I think that it's amazing kind of some of the stigma that the football isn't very good.
Right.
But we have the best players from they're the best players on their high school teams, and some of them come from amazing schools where a bunch of kids were Division I players, but they're still really, really good players. So
Right.
I don't really buy into that, man. I think it's super competitive and fun. Is there a little bit more balance, at least with us, between academics and athletics? Yes, but that's why you're going to college in the first place, is to get an education. And I just think that sometimes, for whatever reason, our society has lost sight of that.
Well, ironically enough, I ask that question every week, and I remember back to my head football coach in high school, Bill Ramito used to make a comment the day before school started, right after camp ended. There's 600, 700 kids up there in the schoolhouse. There's 100 of you on this football field. You're special because you put this jersey on every day. Then to think about the coaches I've had the opportunity to talk to, and now they talk about the fact we're the only sport that when it's done, it's done. You're not going and playing if you want to, and you want to go pick up tackle football, but you got to go to work on Monday. Guess what? Eventually, the tackle football starts to hurt for Monday morning on your day to day. So, Coach, we're at the point. This is we call this our fast five. It's just first things that come to your mind. First things first. Where did you meet your wife?
I met my wife at David Douglas High School. We were both first-year teachers, and she was dating someone, I was dating someone, and that didn't last long. That took about 4 or 5 months of courtship, and we both broke up with who we were dating and ended up together, and we're still together 27 years later. So I've been really blessed. She is the ultimate coach's wife, supportive, super independent. Like I said, she's not the one that's looking at the watch saying, when are you coming home? In fact, if I come home too early, she's like, what are you doing here? So,
You're a little early, sir. You need to get... All right. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I've been to Europe. She's a high school teacher, so we travel to Europe with students quite a bit. I'd maybe lean towards a Paris, maybe a Barcelona, Spain. I just love that European vibe. I think at some point we'll end up being part-time over there.
I hear that. I hear that. What's the most important lesson that you have learned so far over your career?
Boy, that's a great question. I think the most important lesson, and I have to remind myself of this every day, is that you can make a positive difference in the lives of kids, no matter where you're planted. I think for a while there, when I got to college, I felt like I wasn't making as big a difference as I was with kids high school wise. But man, these kids in college, they might need us more than the high school kids. They're still moldable and they're still looking for guidance. And so to me, that's kind of my calling. I mean, the wins and losses are great, and I'm as competitive as anyone. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that when the kids leave, that we've made them better prepared to be good workers someday and good husbands and just good people,
Right. Coach, if you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be a bartender. I like everybody's festive at the bar. I like to talk. I'm kind of a people person. I think that's something I would like to do. In fact, I got to do that a few years ago at a fundraiser, and I remember serving drinks and talking to people, and I'm just kind of BS. And I was like, man, I could do this all day. This is fun.
You don't want to give up coaching just yet, but that's a fallback,
No,
correct?
that's my fallback for sure.
All right. Coach, what's the best compliment you've ever received?
Boy, I got a good one. I wrote it up on my bar, or on my not on my bar, on my wall here. You truly have a gift, and I think that was a really nice compliment I got from a parent from a youth camp we put on a couple summers ago. Just that I think I'm able to to get relational with kids and care about kids and treat each and every one of them individually and love them, for who they are. So I really do try to do that.
And then on the other side of compliments, what's the best insult you've ever heard?
Best insult. Oh boy. I think some of the insults I've had over the years always involve playing time, when you have to make tough decisions around playing time, and you
Right.
have to do it. I've had some people come after me after games and right after the game, you did this to my kid. I'm like, God, please don't take this so personal. Somebody's got to play and somebody does it.
There's only 11 spots. There's 11 spots on offense. There's 11 spots on defense, and there's 11 spots on special teams. That doesn't. Not everybody's going to get there. So, Coach,
keep everybody happy.
Our last question. Right? The last question we ask everybody: was there a question you were expecting? If so, how would you have answered it?
Question I was expecting. That's a good question in itself. I think you asked me everything I was thinking you were going to ask. I didn't, you being from the East Coast, I appreciated you wanting to know more about how it is over here, and
right.
Hopefully your listeners will get something out of it. I'm always curious when I hear from different coaches in different parts of the country. So I think you nailed it, man. There's nothing different I would have asked. Nothing's popping in my head.
Coach, that means I did my job. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's a busy time of the year, especially on a Friday right before a football game. For those of you that are sticking around, you know what comes next. It's Overtime with Serenity Brown, where we pick our 10 games. This has been Coach Joe Bushman, the head football coach at Lewis and Clark College, the Pioneers, and we will be right back. Coach, let me hit stop here real quick. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. Oh, no, it's not. It's Overtime with Serenity Brown. That's Serenity Brown. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated this week. We had a real struggle. We're in meltdown mode on this side. Recapping last week, DB went 7-3, which brings him to 23-7. Serenity went 7-3, brings her to 19-11. And I went 5-5, which brings me to 17-13. We had a great trip to Mount Union last Saturday. There's that highlight tape is up on the YouTube page. I want to say thank you to Coach Bushman and Lewis and Clark for taking the time to sit down with us. They're on a bye week, so they won't be featured in the games this week. But let's jump right into it. So our first game of the week our first game on our board is Claremont Mud Scripts at Cal Lutheran. One of these teams is 3-0. One of these teams is not 3-0. We're all riding with Claremont Mud Scripts. Is there a reason that you picked them? I'm interested.
I don't remember. I was at work when I picked my picks. I feel like I had a reason, but I can't think of it right now.
The next game on the big board is the University of New England versus Rochester. New England is traveling to Rochester. We're all taking Rochester. Why did you pick? Anything on why you picked Rochester? Friend of the show. We had a good time with them.
Because Rochester, New York. That was the only reason on that one.
Next up on the big board, it's Husson traveling to Anna Maria. We all took Husson.
Yes, we did.
A little interesting. I think Anna Maria is going to give them a game, but these are two teams that I haven't really watched, so they'll be getting watched this week. But I'm rolling with Husson.
I was vibing with Husson.
Honestly, I think it's because of Fitz. I had to pick against him, and he went to Anna Marie. So nothing against you, Fitz. It's just you are who you are. Next up is McMurray at Austin College. You guys are going to notice a trend here as we go through these games. We all picked McMurray. This trip to Mount Union brought us all kind of closer.
Together again.
And now all of our brains are hopefully as one.
Which is really funny because none of us were near each other when we made our picks either.
I'm just picking with them because I've struggled. That's what I'm going with. It's not true, but that's what I'm going with. So we all picked McMurray. Next up, RPI travels to Endicott. RPI, good ball club. Endicott seems to be rolling right now. The entire group taking Endicott.
Yeah.
Next up is Hope College. Will travel to number 16 Alma. Again, Hope, very good football team. Alma has that one loss to UW River Falls. As a group, taking Alma. There is one difference. We're coming up to it here soon. But not this game. UW number 6 UW River Falls travels to Mount St. Joseph. Again, I think this is one of those teams until they get beat. Wisconsin Whitewater. It's going to be really hard to pick against these Wisconsin schools. And again, the group did not pick against the Wisconsin school. UW River Falls, number 6, is who everybody picked. Next up was where we traveled to last week. Number 4, Mount Union, travels to Baldwin Wallace. This another one of these teams at the top of the OAC that has been a thorn in Mount Union's side. A couple years ago, Baldwin Wallace had Mount Union down, and a Hail Mary that instead of being batted down gets tipped up in the air, and Mount Union wins, and they go off into glory.
With that being said,
we all took Mount Union. This is the game that's different. Number 15, Carnegie Mellon, travels right up the road here from us to Washington, Pennsylvania, to meet the presidents of Washington and Jefferson. I picked Carnegie Mellon. Serenity picked Carnegie Mellon. DB rolling with the presidents.
Yeah.
I just think Carnegie Mellon really going to try to make a statement rolling out of the PAC. All roads lead to them in Grove City, I think, for the automatic bid. That's not saying that W&J hasn't been hungry for the last couple weeks, and I know that they'll be getting up a little extra for the Carnegie Mellon coming down the road. And then our game of the week, the Johnnies, number 5, St. John's, travels to number 24, Bethel. The entire group took St. John's. I'm going to take credit for that because I think everybody realized when St. John's beat Wartburg that this Johnny's team was a legit contender. One of us got that one right. One of us didn't. Anything else?
No.
It's really hard for me to be in third place on my own show, so I just want all of you to know that. It's a mental crisis, but we're hoping that this week's gonna change some things. Although since we all picked the same games, I'll probably still be in third place. Could win them all and still be in third place next week. So appreciate you guys stopping by. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button or the follow button on Spotify, and follow us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The only one different is the Instagram page. That's dingo_talk. And we'll be back next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.